Okay, we are down to our final technique, but I did just see here in my most recent files, I'm seeing the PSD that I just saved that included one of our, it included one of our adjustment layers being turned on, and I suspect that that was the one we did at the end with the eyedropper. So here it is, but just in case you wondered, did it look any better? Well, yeah, here's the original, here's our change. Had I saved this, we would also see the dramatic change there as well. All right, finally, let's get done here and let's do some curves, and specifically, let's do some work based on math, which I love. So, Photoshop Book Files, Chapter 5, we need race car number 1. This is a very cool way of color correcting because it's not subjective. It's not your opinion versus mine. It's simply finding some neutral points and neutralizing them. Should be neutral points. So the ability of curves to make multiple midpoint adjustments is better than levels where we can add midpoint. Curves allows us to make as many adjustments as we want, but we talked about not doing more than maybe 3 or so. We're going to use curves in a way that's similar to the gray point eyedropper because we're going to correct more than just one gray point. We're going to correct 2 gray points. So the first thing we need to do with our image is make an adjustment layer, and we're going to want to make a curves adjustment. So come down here, click on the adjustment layer and choose curves. So again, I'm going to make this a little bit larger up here so that we can see the numbers underneath it. So if my cursor will allow, spinning beach ball. There we go. Finally got the double arrows. I'm going to drag this down. I need to be able to see underneath here because we're going to have some information here. So we do see our black point and our white point, but with curves we can adjust anywhere along here. So we can adjust this point or this point or this point by moving the curve up and down. So using our color sample tool, back in our toolbar, we're going to get the sample tool. And what we want to do is we want to sample 2 spots that should be neutral gray. And because we're working with an asphalt road here, we kind of think of them as being a neutral gray, and we certainly can see some different hues of gray in here. So this is going to be a perfect way to use this tool. So we're going to make our first point on a bright part of the pavement. And if you look in the book, I'm going to follow the area they are, so it's consistent with your book. They're sampling up in this area to the left of the back end of the car. So I'm going to click once to make a number 1 sample point there. And then we're going to sample somewhere in this dark gray strip right here. So I'm going to come down here and sample again. There's my number 1 and number 2 sample points. And if I look at the info box that popped up by default, my number 1 spot over here in the bright area, I see that blue is winning the tug of war, 202. In the darker sample point down here, I see that blue is still winning the tug of war. So the way that we're going to try to fix this is that we're going to look at these input values, which is the first number here, and we're going to want to average them. So using math, I know we all love math, I'll get our calculator up here. We are going to add these 3 numbers and then divide by. So my calculator is currently popping. If you want to do this on paper, with a calculator, whatever, that's up to you. I'm literally going to show you on this digital calculator when it pops up. Okay, I finally got my calculator popped up. So for point number 1, I'm going to add these numbers. 162. Oh, this is going to go away every time I do it. Okay, I thought I'd be helpful here, but I guess this isn't being helpful. I'm going to add 162, 171, and 202. And then when I get that number, I'm going to divide by 3 to get our answer. So 162. That's my very crunchy calculator. 171, 202 equals 535. Divide that by 3 to get the average. The average number I got was 178.33333. So I'm just going to say if they're all at 178, that's going to be a decent point. So point number 1 should be averaged out to 178. All right, panel. So I just looked in the corner and it said my microphone wasn't working. So if that's the case and you didn't hear what I said, recently I'm going to be really disgusted. I'm going to hope it was wrong and we're just going to move on because we just corrected for point number 1. Now we're going to look at point number 2. So I'm just going to activate this again. And the darker version of the gray that we sampled, blue is the bully. It's got way too high of numbers. So we're going to do the same thing for this sample point. We're going to add your 3 values. So in my case, 98 plus 116 plus 156 divided by 3 gives me an average of 123. That's the number that we should be averaging out to. So I am going to go and on the same curve, I'm going to log a point in the darker part of the spectrum. So down here in the blacks and dark grays, that's these pixels. So I'm just going to click in the red channel. I'm going to click anywhere on the left of this original point. So darker than the original point, I'm going to click to set a point. Doesn't matter what it is. From here, however, I'm going to go and look at point number 2. The red is 98, so that's where my input really is. And where it should be, based on the averaging, is 123. Looking better already. Then I'm going to go to the green channel. I'm going to click somewhere on this lower part of the line. The input for green should be, or was, 116, but it really should be 123 if we get it averaged out. And then finally, I'm going to go to the blue channel. I'm going to click on the curve down here in the lower, darker section. Blue input was 156, and I'm going to change it to stop being a bully to 123, which is what all of the other colors are. And look at the resulting image. It's pretty fantastic, and it was done objectively. We looked at numbers only, and we sampled 2 neutral points, and we took out the color bias at those 2 points. So when I look at this, I can see that you have a curves adjustment layer, but more specifically, I can look channel by channel and I will see 2 additional points. You're not touching the input here, you're not dragging that up or down, and you're not touching the black input. You're adding 2 new points. So red, green, and blue all have 2 new input points on them. And that's the way we successfully color correct using curves and the eyedropper.